Hello everyone, and a very good morning to you. So thank you for joining us today for a second edition of the Gardening with Edibles Facebook Live session. So I'm Wee Fong, and with me here today is Derek, and we will be sharing some gardening tips for growing leafy vegetables and answer your questions on pest management.
Hello, indeed it's very good to see everyone online this morning, and I hope you are just as excited as I am to pick up some tips on gardening and pest management.
So in this round of Gardening with Edibles, we have made available some 400,000 seed packs across 10 different leafy vegetables, which are easy to grow, and you should be able to get some substantial harvests from them. So some new varieties this round include the red and green bayam, the huangjing bai cai, the gao bei cai, or sometimes known as jiu bai cai, the nai bai cai, and also Chinese mustard. So some of y'all have already received your seed pack already, but those of y'all who have not yet received your seed pack, don't worry, and please bear with us for the time being as our team works hard to actually sort out the addresses and deliver the seed packs to you. But meanwhile, you can still join us for the Facebook Live sessions and also watch some of our online videos to learn the know-hows before growing your seed pack.
And this round of Gardening with Edible Seed Pack distribution is made possible through the Garden City Fund and in partnership with Singapore Post Limited. Alright, that's all for the introduction. Let's get started.
Yeah, let's get started. Okay, so for today's session, we're going to dive straight deep into answering some of your questions about some common pests and diseases that we encounter when growing leafy vegetables. So thanks to those of you all who have submitted your questions earlier through Facebook and Instagram, we have some questions ready and we have actually sieved them out. So to get things started, we will answer some of these burning questions and do some live demos along the way. So for the first question, maybe Derek, you want to take this one. We're going to tackle is what are some common pests that we actually encounter when growing leafy vegetables?
Thank you, Wilfong. That is indeed a very good question to start the day with. There are indeed a bazillion of pests that can actually harm your garden and wreak havoc to your leafy vegetables, but they can broadly be broken into two types. One is leaf-eating, and second is sap-sucking.
Right.
So most of these are insects, and as the name suggests, leaf-eating insect pests, they directly chew and feed on the leaves to create bite marks and holes.
Ah, right. I know a bit like your grasshoppers and beetles with those big mandibles, and also maybe like caterpillars kind of thing.
You're right. So those are very big insect pests that you can easily see in your gardens, like grasshoppers and beetles. But caterpillars, I just want to take this opportunity to explain a bit. I know a lot of you guys, whenever you see any weekly worms look alike things, you will call them all caterpillars.
Yeah,
yes, indeed. But then they are most of them are juvenile stages from the order of Lepidoptera.
What? That was a big word. Lepidoptera.
Lepidoptera,
so, right.
For short form, like another way to call it is they are the order of moth and butterflies.
Right. Okay. So Lepidoptera, so like moth and butterflies. So will you be able to provide some examples of some of these moth caterpillars that you were mentioning that actually chew on our leafy vegetables kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. Before I go into those, I just want to make you guys aware that a lot of butterfly caterpillars, when you see them, they're actually not considered pests, so do not get rid of them. But a lot of, like Wifong mentioned, moth caterpillar, right, they can actually cause a lot of issues. So a lot of time when you inspect your leaves on the surface, you see cluster of eggs, translucent or whitish in color, as you're seeing on the screen. Although seeing eggs are not exactly a bad thing because they can be butterfly eggs, but when these eggs, right, they start to hatch into worms that look translucent green with shiny black heads in appearance, that is when you know it can be the armyworm early stages. So these guys, right, they start out very tiny as like only as small as a rice grain.
Like a rice grain, right?
Yes,
wow.
But within 10 to 14 days, make a guess how big they can become.
Maybe like
this
like
one.
A basmati rice grain, a bigger one.
Oh no, oh no, it's way more than that.
Oh wow, I see them. Okay, so you can see right here, wow, these are actually quite big and succulent, right?
Yes, indeed. So this is within 10 to 14 days is how big they can actually grow. And this armyworm, right, is a later stage already. And then you see these guys have been chewing so much vegetable for the last few days that now he's already inactive because why? It's already accumulated enough energy. So soon this caterpillar will start to pupate to form the cocoon, and from the cocoon they will emerge as armyworm moth like the one I'm having right here.
So this is the adult stage.
Yes, this is the adult stage. This is quite common pest of your gardens. And unlike butterflies, butterflies tend to be very colorful, but moths, they are much more dull in colors. And for armyworms, normally you will see white stripes and markings on the wings as the one you are seeing on the screen right now.
Wow, so just now, Derek, you were mentioning like these moths are actually very common, but I don't remember seeing them around in my gardens or around my leafy vegetables.
No surprise at all, because I don't imagine you hang around in your garden at night. Because these moths, right, they are actually quite active at night because they are nocturnal, and they are also quite fast flying. And even when they fly, right, they don't really like fly a lot, they will dash.
They just dart from place to place.
Yeah, they will just dart from place to place, and they also like to hide under the leaves as well. So it's very hard to spot them even at night. So actually it took specific trapping methods and some techniques to get all these specimens to show you guys today.
Wow, I mean, it's true. I mean, I wouldn't want to be going to my garden at night because that's when the mosquitoes come out, and I don't want to actually get more mosquito bites than I want to.
Yes, indeed. There is another type of quite common so-called caterpillars you may see in your gardens is diamondback moth caterpillars. So to differentiate from armyworms, as I mentioned, they are translucent green in their body and with the black heads. So diamondback moth larvae, right, they are much more opaque and they are green in colors. So these guys, they also feed very voraciously, just like armyworms. And once they accumulate enough energy, they will form the silk cage as the one you are seeing right now. And then inside this silk cage is the pupae. Then when the pupae emerge, they will also become adult moth as well.
Right. Okay. So I see this. I can see now why this moth is called a diamondback moth. They have this diamond shape thing, white marking on their backs.
That is very observant of you. That is the reason why in so-called entomology, the study of insects, we like to name things, the common names with tied to the appearance, so it's easier
to remember.
Yeah, easy to remember, right? Okay, so another very common leaf-eating insect pest that a lot of you will be familiar with is leaf miners.
Right. Okay, I think I do have some example here. So I think we're talking about something like the one we see. Let's see, where is it? All right. Wait.
This one here, right?
Yeah, yes. These trails, right? These are the white streaks that we're talking about.
Yes, indeed. What Wifong mentioned is right. White streaks on your leaves are telltale sign of leaf miners. But do take note, white streaks are considered symptoms. So in pest management term, symptoms are any damage caused by the insects on the plant tissues or any reactions from the plants to the infestation. They are called symptoms. So what you are seeing is white streak is a symptoms, but what actually causing is a much smaller larvae that are really kernel and ball inside. It's not very easy to see. So that's why I already prepared much zoom out photo like you are seeing on the screen right now. So I mark out the red borders actually are the tunnels and the damage of the white streaks you normally see. But if you do pay close attention, I mark out purple borders that actually the actual larvae. And then when I take it out as a video, as you are seeing, this is how the actual larvae you normally don't see, but this is much closer. It much look more like a maggot rather than a caterpillars. And as like maggots is from flies, right?
Yeah.
So this, when it eats enough, it will start to also pupate first. But they are smart in a way, when they pupate, they drop to the ground, so they can hide from other predators, and then from the ground they will re-emerge as adult flies that are yellowish in colors, but the flies are very tiny and they are very fast flying, so it's very hard to spot them. So the easiest way, just look for the white streaks.
Wow, thanks, Derek. I didn't know that some of these leaf miners will actually emerge as flies, and actually these very small flies actually fly around your garden. So thanks so much for sharing so much information about some of these common leaf-eating insects that actually we encounter when growing leafy vegetables. So just now, Derek, at the start you mentioned there are two types of common pests that we will encounter when growing leafy vegetables. So we've covered quite a bit about the leaf-eating ones. Then you mentioned there's another group,
Sap-sucking.
the sap-sucking, right?
Correct.
So will you be able to tell us more about this group of sap-sucking insects?
Definitely. So leaf-eating will, the insect will directly consume the plant tissues. But for sap-sucking, as the name suggests, these insects mealybugs, right, they will suck the sap out of the plants because these insects, they have very sharp mouthpiece like a needle. So it like puncture through the plant tissue and suck the sap out like that.
It's like a straw kind of thing.
Yes.
So will things like aphids be considered as like a sap-sucking pest that we encounter in leafy vegetables?
You are absolutely right. Aphids are one of the most common pests, sap-sucking pests in the garden, as you may see. So a lot of time, like in these plants, you see look very sad because if you pay closer attention, right, it's heavily infested with aphids. So normally aphids, they like to hide under the leaves, and then they have different colors, but more common colors you may see yellow, translucent green, or sometimes black. And they like to hang along the leaf veins of fruits or flowers because these areas are very rich in nutrients. And you know, they are sap-sucking, so they want to get the most out of it. Yeah.
So Derek, they are so tiny, and just like you also mentioned that they hide under the leaves, and somehow you're also mentioning that sometimes the colors are like green.
So how about we take a closer look? Because I understand a lot of my like the gardeners, they just see with naked eyes. But I've already prepared the microscope here. Just give me a second. I can zoom in so for you to see how they look like.
Yeah, I'm starting to see some spots. Oh wow! I hope you can also see this on your screen right now. Actually, these what you're seeing on the screens are actually aphids, Derek.
Yes, these are aphids, and as you already see, they like to hang along all the veins, and most of the time they are not as mobile because once they're already happy with the spot, they will just poke their needle's mouth part and start sucking on the plant sap. And another fun fact about these aphids, right, is that all these aphids you see, right, especially in the tropics area, most of them are all female. And these females, right, they can give birth to other live female aphids. As a video I already prepared for you to see how it actually happens. So and then as tiny as the nymph, the younger aphids, we call nymph, coming out of the adult female, that tiny nymph actually is already pregnant also, and it's ready to give birth to other aphids within a very short period. That is the reason why aphids spread super fast in your garden.
Wow, so actually, if they're spreading so fast and they are so tiny and they also hide, what are some ways that we definitely must stop them early, right? So what are some telltale signs and any tips on spotting aphids infestation very quickly, Derek?
Indeed, there is a faster way to look is, as I mentioned, these aphids, they suck sap from the plants, and then they are very, very greedy. They take more than what they actually can consume. So a lot of time they will re-expel the plant sap through the back of their body and to create droplets. So these droplets are still rich in nutrients. They call honeydew.
It's like sugary.
Yes, very sugary. So these sugary substance, when deposited on the leaf, will encourage the growth of another type of fungus called sooty mold.
Oh, so a bit like so sooty mold, like it's like those black color things like soot that we see or sometimes on
for example,
leaves.
as the leaf photos you see. So when you see green leaves with black sooty molds, that is the telltale sign of likely an aphid infestation or maybe some sap-sucking insects.
Right.
Yeah.
So
there's
other
than
aphids, is there another one that we're looking at?
Yeah, so another one of the plants I have right here.
Okay, I know this one. This is my arch nemesis. This is called the mealybug. I know this for sure because I've been battling this with some of my plants for some time.
Indeed. So mealybugs, as you see, we found he's so familiar because they are very widespread. And the telltale sign of how you can actually differentiate, how you can spot mealybugs, look for the white or yellowish fluffy insects that tend to also aggregate along the leaf veins, fruits or flowers.
Okay. So just like aphids, just now you also mentioned they like to congregate at all these the veins where all the rich nutrients are, where they can sap. So they are very much like aphids, right?
Yes, indeed. Because all these mealybugs, they are sap-sucking. So just like aphid, they just want to maximize their chance because as you see, these mealybugs, they don't really move much. Once they settle, they will stay there. But do not let their sluggishness fool you because these mealybugs, they can spread very quickly from plants to plants if you don't control them.
Yes.
But there's a fun fact I want to introduce to all of you is, I know many experienced gardeners quite familiar with fluffy white appearance of the mealybugs, but there is another form of mealybug which is male mealybug. is
mealybugs.
the photos you are seeing right now. So male mealybugs are much more like an insect with transparent wings. So these male mealybug can actually fly around and mate with other females to assist with the spreading.
Wow, okay, I mean, it's not really my idea of fun. I mean, flying male mealybugs is a bit like an equivalent of a flying cockroach, but in the plant world, right? So I guess it's very hard to spot them considering that they're so tiny, right? All these mealybugs and aphids and things like that. So in general, for mealybugs, what do you think is the best way to actually spot mealybugs? Is it to actually look for the white fluffy kind of things that we see here on the plants?
Yes, in a way, looking for white fluffy things to spot mealybugs is okay, but do notice that there's a caveat. What the white fluffy stuff you are seeing, they're actually wax. So these wax can be secreted by mealybugs, but other insect pests can also secrete them as well, such as whitefly larvae. As the photo you're seeing, these whitefly larvae, they also secrete waxy compounds, and they also appear quite fluffy in appearance.
Wow, so Derek, so you're saying that mealybugs, they have this, they secrete this white, fluffy, waxy kind of substance, and you're also saying that for whiteflies, they also do that as well. So then, if we have these two, how do we differentiate which is which when we see this white, fluffy stuff on our leafy vegetables?
Yeah, that is a very good question. So the easiest way you can differentiate is for whiteflies. Whenever you see white fluffy stuff, right, you also see the adults nearby. So the adults, right, as you are seeing, is have the white opaque wings.
Wings, all right.
Yes, and then if you look close enough, they will have yellowish bodies. So when you see this as white fluffy with white wings insect adult, they are likely to be whitefly.
So really like white color flies flying around kind
yes,
of thing. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then for mealybugs, most of the time you don't see the wing adult at all. So that is when you know it's mealybugs.
Right, okay. So actually that's quite interesting for the mealybugs. But I understand that other than aphids and mealybugs, there's also another type of sap-sucking insect that we're looking at, right?
Yes, spider mites.
Right, oh gosh, sneaky fellas. So spider mites, wow, okay, let's see, what do we have here?
Let's take a look at this plant here. This plant is also very sad because it's very heavily infested with spider mites. So spider mites, unlike whiteflies or mealybugs or any other pests, are much easier to be spotted. Spider mites, they are very sneaky, they are very tiny, and a lot of time they like to hide under the leaves. So the easiest way to spot spider mite infestation is you can also look at the leaf. For example, I have a leaf right here. As you can see, if you see a lot of white dots on the surface, white tiny dots on the surface of your leaf, and then when you flip them over, then you will see very small, almost like dust particles that are red and can move around. Those are actually red spider mites.
Oh, really? I thought they would be like soil particles, but
yes,
they're actually...
you may think they are soil particle, right? How about we look? I take out the leaf and we look much closer to actually see how they look like.
All right. Oh, exciting. So we get to see a live spider mite in action.
All right.
Wow, okay, I'm starting to see some things right now. I'm seeing some white spots. Oh, I'm starting to see some things moving. Okay, I hope you're able to see some of these moving things on the screen right now.
So what you are seeing right now is actually the younger spider mites. They are translucent, they are yellowish in colors, and they have two black dots.
Yep,
that's why sometimes you will see the spider mites are called two-spotted spider mites. So the older adults, right, they will be much bigger and they are red in colors. And sometimes if you pay closer attention, right, you will see small translucent spheres. Those are actually eggs. But I think here we are not seeing, so let me try another leaf to see if we can capture that.
Right, so the adults will be the ones that have grown fully red, and those are the ones that appear like soil particles under the leaves, right? That's the ones that usually sometimes what we will see.
Yes.
I'm starting to see some of these black so-called soil particles, but actually not soil particles. So those are
Yes, we have still a lot of spider mites, but I do see some of the spheres, translucent. So those
right.
are actually the eggs.
Wow, so actually we do have almost like a whole generation, a whole family of spider mites just living under one roof, or in this case, under one leaf. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
So it's a kind of family gathering you don't want to happen in your gardens.
right. Okay, so as we are growing edible plants, I would strongly recommend that you use organic pesticides to treat your plants. So I have brought with me over here some examples of organic pesticides which you might want to consider when actually treating some of the plant pest problems that you have at home. So over here, the first one we have is actually neem oil. So neem oil is actually a natural extract from the neem tree, and so these are actually quite effective pesticides, contact pesticides actually. So you need to spray them directly on the plant pest itself. Next is a pesticide that has an active ingredient called pytrin. So if you do look for some of these pesticides in commercial nurseries or off-the-shelf kind of products, look for this active ingredient called pytrin. So it's actually a natural compound that is extracted from chrysanthemums.
Chrysanthemum flowers?
Chrysanthemum flowers, yes.
Oh, wow.
And they are actually effective pesticides against insect pests as well. And last but not least is actually the white oil, or sometimes they might call it white summer oil in commercial products. So these are actually also quite good contact pesticides, and you can, for the white oil or white summer oil, other than treating for common pests like those chewing ones, you can also use it against common plant pests that produce this waxy protective layer around them to protect themselves, like the mealybugs, my arch nemesis. And because what the white summer oil or white oil does is it actually covers the holes of all these insects, the breathing holes, and actually suffocates them.
I see. But my concern right now is actually my plants here with spider mites. So what do you recommend? I should save the plants.
Right. Okay. So if you are not able to get some of these off-the-shelf products, you can also try some of these homemade solutions that you can make easily at home. So for the first one that I will be sharing, okay, so just bear with me for a while, is using just a very simple solution of using baking soda. So baking soda is actually used as a household product for actually cleaning surfaces, or sometimes for baking, for baking and things like that. And then what you need is about 500 milliliters of water and a spray bottle. So what you just need to do is simply just take half a tablespoon of baking soda, mix it with 500 milliliters of water, and you just pour them into a spray bottle. Just give it a good shake and mix it well, and then what you can do is just spray on the plants to chase away the red spider mites and also to treat this plant pest.
I see. But let's say a lot of times, right, I treat my plants, and then the plants, you can get rid of the pests, but sometimes, especially like spider mites, they do like to come back. So how do I even prevent that from happening?
Right, okay. So another simple solution that you can try at home, okay, sorry, this is turning a bit like a cooking class. So
yes, indeed, I see a lot of spices here.
Yeah, so what you can do for another solution that is organic, that is safe for spraying for your edible plants, is actually a simple solution using chili paddies, garlic and onion. So what you need to do for this is you just need to have 2 chili paddies, 2 cloves of onions, 2 cloves of garlic, and 1 large onion. So what you need to do is you just need to chop these up finely, like what I've prepared over here. And then what you need to do is you just need to actually mix them into another half a liter of water, 500 milliliters of water, and you let it steep for 24 hours so that actually the substances and the oils in these chili paddy, the garlic and also the onion seeps into the water. And then what you need to do next is you need to use a sieve to actually sieve out all these chopped bits, because you do not want the chopped bits to actually be clogging your spray bottle itself. And then you just empty the solution into the spray bottle, and then you just spray and apply on the plants. And you can just keep applying it until the plant pests actually go away. And you can actually do so often to actually deter plant pests from actually coming to the plants.
I see. Like these have very strong smell. Just stand here, or like a bit like far apart already. I can still smell it quite strong. So I bet all these insects also don't like these spices at all.
Yeah, they sure don't like their spices. Well, okay, so okay, let me get all these things here first. All right, so just now, Derek, you were also saying, just now we also touched quite a bit about all these creepy crawlies, about these leaf-eating insects and also the sap-sucking insects. So will you say that all creepy crawlies that I see or we encounter in our gardens are actually bad for our plants or vegetables?
Indeed, a lot of the pests in your garden, they are insects, but not all insects are harmful to your plants. And a lot of times you will see in your gardens are actually spiders. First, spiders are not considered insects, but they are quite common creepers in your gardens. And how you can tell is spider will have 4 pairs of legs when insects only have 3 pairs.
All right.
So in that sense, spiders are considered arachnids. So spiders, they with their webs, and some of them actually directly hunt on many insect pests, so they can actually keep your garden safe in that way. And another very common type of beneficial insect you may find in your gardens are ladybug. So ladybug beetles the 2 common forms you will see is first is a juvenile stage.
All right.
The juvenile stage is the one you're seeing their elongated body and with 3 prominent pair of legs. That's why they're insects. And then sometimes you will see markings on their back. And then when these juvenile state mature, they will become dome-shaped, shiny in appearance insects called ladybugs. And ladybugs have different colors. Yeah, and then the number of spots actually tied to their names, like 1 spotted, 2 spotted. That's how we normally refer them to.
Right.
Yeah, and the not so common beneficial insect you may see in your gardens are assassin bugs. So how you can actually tell the assassin bug is by looking any insect with slender body, and then they have very striking orange or red colors, a lot of times like that, and very slender head. Then you know they are assassin bugs. But if you really pay very close attention, or you have like very strong power camera, when you take the photos, you do see these assassin bug, they have very thick proboscis and then very sharp, like a lance.
Right, like a knife and things like that.
Yes, so they can easily poke and impale their prey and eat a lot of the insect pests and keep your garden safe.
Right, so very much like an assassin.
Yeah.
Right, so thanks, Derek, for actually sharing with us so much about quite a bit of all these different sap-sucking insects, leaf-eating insects, and also some of the beneficial or friends of the gardens that we should actually try to keep them and not chase them away. So I've spent quite a bit of time on the first question, so now let's move on to the next question that we have received. So another question that we have received is, what is a good way to address the leaf miner infestations that we actually see in our leafy vegetables?
I see.
Okay.
So
let's
go back to the plants that have been infested
leaf
with
miner
leaf
plant.
miner. Yes. So the easiest way is you can use a kind of a netting.
Right, something like that?
Yes, correct. So what I'm holding in my hand, they are called horticultural nets. So this netting, the simplest way you can do is you enclose your entire plants, and then in that way, you will prevent the adults from actually coming near to your plants, so they cannot lay any eggs. In that way, they cannot infest your plants. But as you see these particular plants here, there are already some white streaks on the leaves. That means it's already been infested with the larvae already.
Yep.
So the simplest way, you simply snip out all the infested leaves and you remove them. So prevent the larvae from maturing. But as I mentioned earlier when I talked about leaf miners, is the pupae, they drop to the ground. That is quite challenging to spot. So what you can actually do is you use yellow sticky trap within the enclosure to capture any emerging adult flies. When you actually see the flies, you can also use some white summer oil to actually kill them. And that is for leaf miner control, so hope that helps a lot of you. And another question we have received is, a lot of people have issue with snails. How do we get rid of those?
All right, okay, so snails are unlike the plant pests that Derek has talked about. They are actually mollusks, which actually feed on organic material by actually grazing on them. So that's why they leave all these trails and all these bite marks. And sometimes you also see the frass that actually they leave behind. So to address the snail issue, you need to trap them And to trap them, actually, you can actually use a very simple homemade solution. So sorry to bear with me, another cooking class lesson here. So you can actually gather some of these ingredients very easily at home. So what you need, first of all, a glass jar. So the glass jar needs to be sufficiently big, so maybe about like a 15 cm tall glass jar with a wide enough opening. So you can use things like the pasta sauce bottle that you have actually finished, or sometimes even the peanut butter jar. And you need warm water, not boiling hot, but warm, so lukewarm. This will be good in actually activating the yeast. And next, like what I mentioned, you need yeast. So baker's yeast, like those that you can buy off the shelves in supermarkets or grocery stores, you can actually get, and they come in sachets. So you need about half a sachet of yeast and also a tablespoon of sugar. So what you need to do is just simply take the yeast and the sugar and you mix it with the warm water and let the yeast actually slowly ferment the sugar. If you want, there's another variation where you can actually add a small tablespoon of salt into the water, and you can then add this mixture into, pour this mixture into the glass jar.
So we have yeast, we have sugar, we have warm water. I feel like we are making some alcohol here.
Yes, a bit like, in fact, you're right, Derek. So another variation, or sometimes what some other people do use is actually they use expired beer, but actually, but beer is actually quite expensive, and usually if you have beer, you want to drink it and enjoy it, right? Yeah. So, but you do have expired beer, you can also use that as well. But okay, so back to this solution. So once you have this solution that you have inside the jar, what you then need to do is you need to deploy this trap, the snail trap, into your garden. So one of the things that you can do is actually to bury this jar with the solution next to the vegetable patch, or next or near the place where you are growing all these leafy vegetables. So what you might want to do is actually to bury them in the soil with the opening just slightly above the soil, so that you don't get so much soil dropping into the glass jar itself. Or sometimes if you're not able to, because you're growing them in pots, what you can do is you can just stack it up so that it's on the same level with your pots and things like that, so that when the snails are actually crawling around at night, they will be attracted to the yeast solution and they just go in and drop inside. And another thing to take note is, because since you are making this pitfall trap, what you might want to do then is you might want to then check on this jar every day, because what happens is, because the past few days have been quite rainy, right, Derek?
Yeah.
And especially at night. So what will happen is you will get all these rainwater actually go into your jar, and your dilute solution, and you want to check daily also to remove the snails from the jar itself.
That's also help to remove the mosquitoes.
Yes,
right?
exactly, because you do not want to actually get rid of one problem, but actually you attract another problem. So do check daily for the snails, for dilution, and also for mosquito breeding as well. Yeah. Right. So we have answered some of these questions, and let's take a look at some of these other questions that we have received also. The first question is, I'm using self-watering pots and with soil constantly moist, will that facilitate plant pests from growing in the soil? Okay, well, so self-watering pots are actually, those pots usually we have like a reservoir of water below, and it actually works in the manner of like when the soil is dry, it actually goes by diffusion. The water actually just gets taken up by the soil. Okay, so for this question, actually the most important thing is, for growing plants, there are some important principles that you need to take note. You need to know what are the ideal growing conditions for plants, for the species or the type of vegetables you are growing. So most of the leafy vegetables that we are growing, they don't like waterlogged soils. They need actually free draining, except for maybe the kangkong, which you can actually grow it in lots of water and things like that. So when growing some of these leafy vegetables in self-watering pots, you might want to just make sure that you don't overfill the reservoir, for example, so that you don't get waterlogged soils. You get waterlogged soils, what happens is the plants get weaker because they're not in the most ideal growing condition.
Correct, because the root need to breathe as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if they're not in the most ideal growing condition, what happens is they become weaker, and when they become weaker, they are more susceptible to actually plant pests actually attacking them. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Wilfong, for addressing the question. And then another question we do receive is, I found white powder on my plant leaves and mold in the soil. May I know what went wrong?
Right.
All right. So for this kind of questions, white powder on your leaves can be can be fungus, it can be powdery mildew, or it can be downy mildews. So this is the cause is because you have very humid air and then lack of sunlight. And I don't understand a lot of gardeners, they do like to mist their plants because it makes the plant's leaf look much fresher. But especially when you mist too much, lack of sunlight, and a lot of time you will plant a lot of dense plants together that also trap the humid air around. It's an ideal condition for this kind of powdery mildew, downy mildews to happen. Similarly, as we've already mentioned, if your soil is too wet, waterlogged, and then lack of sunlight and aeration, it also encourages the growth of mold as well. So the simplest way to deal with all this is just to make sure that your plants have good ventilation of air. Try to limit, I'm not saying you don't do it, but try to limit the number of misting you do, and also to make sure your soil is not overly wet.
Yeah, so actually what Derek mentioned is actually correct. So I think also mentioned in Wilson and Jacqueline's Facebook Live session last month was also another one thing that often when we actually overlook when growing vegetables is actually air circulation. To have good air circulation actually helps to also, other than growing healthy looking leafy vegetables, it also helps to actually prevent some of these plant pests.
All right, and I noticed a lot of our audiences also have live questions. So how about we address some of them?
Right. So yeah. So well, we have the first question.
All right, so let's see.
Okay, so the first question we have is actually by one of our viewers. Okay, she mentioned that I found some red color long shaped insects with some black dots at the body, but it's not a ladybug. Will they harm my plant?
All right, so based on the appearance, I think it may be something similar to the insects I think I captured this morning, but let's see if I got it right.
Wow, you are well prepared.
Yes, because I just take my stroll this morning into the edible gardens and I found quite a number of them. So what you are seeing right here is a piece of, okay, I don't know, all right. So this is probably what you are describing. I hope, I'm just making a wild guess. So these are cotton stanner bugs. They are red in appearance and they have 2 black dots on their back. So this is very common pest you may find in your okra, and then they are sap-sucking insects, so they can actually cause a lot of issues in your okra as well. So if you see them, you know they are pests. So by just simply remove them will do, because they don't really occur in in large numbers. So yeah, I hope I guessed right.
All right. Okay. We have another question that actually mentioned about. Okay. I think I'll just take this question very quickly. There's one question on why do moth why do they become cocoon or pupate in the ground soil. I think this is one of the things that Derek mentioned quite briefly just now. And just in case you didn't catch it, the reason why some of these moths actually they pupate and cocoon in the soil is because they are trying to avoid the predators. And so unlike butterflies, sometimes you see the butterfly chrysalis hanging on the underside of the leaves, but for moth, they tend to actually go into the soil. So in this sense, it's actually quite hard to actually detect the moth pupa or the cocoon once they reach that stage, and after that they emerge as the adults and they just fly off. So the best way to actually spot for some of these leaf-eating caterpillars that belong to the moth family, to moths, is actually to spot them early. So look for telltale signs of like your leaf damage having like chew marks on the sides or sometimes in the middle, and then always look for them under the leaves because they like to hide after they are munching, or sometimes when they are munched they are also hiding under the leaves to munch, and sometimes what they do is they also hide along the stems to actually rest and to avoid predators. Right.
Yes. Okay, and the next question we have from Jennifer Lee. Will you cover fungus nets? How to rid of them? Okay, so fungus nets, first I want to clarify fungus nets, most of the times they are considered nuisance pests. That means they like to hang around in your plants and they don't exactly harm your plants per se, but if it's a nuisance, you want to get rid of them. The easiest way is fungus net, how actually they grow and they love very wet conditions. So if your soils, again, if you overwater them or there's a waterlogged soil, you will attract a lot of fungus nets. So just make sure your soils are not dry, are not wet. Make sure good and dry ventilations and everything. It can reduce the fungus net appearance.
So fungus nets are usually these black color, small little fly-like things that you usually see quite around. They don't, like what Derek mentioned, they don't exactly harm your plants, but sometimes they look very irritating and things like that. But the key thing is to keep your soil well drained. Okay, we have another question from Pi Ling. She mentioned, hi, may I know what are ways to remove pests organically? Okay, so actually for managing pests in our leafy vegetables or sometimes even in our plants, I would recommend actually a few pronged approach. Okay, first, actually like what Derek demonstrated just now for the leaf miners, first you want to do is you want to have 3 layers of, you want to have 3 layers of defense. First, you want to have the exclusion method. So usually that's why you see some of these gardeners, they actually put this horticulture net like the one you see here. So do take note, get something that is a fine meshed. You don't want something that with the mesh that's with the holes that are too big, because you still get insects flying through. So first is to exclude out any more new pests from coming in to your leafy greens. And then what you want to do is you then want to remove whatever existing plant pests that you have within this enclosure. So to do that, what you need to do is like what Derek also mentioned before, is to actually remove the leaves or to spot for some of these plant pests that you can see, like maybe the caterpillars or sometimes you see the leaf miners. Just remove them as much as possible. So in that way, you reduce the population within this excluded enclosure already. But this is not going to be totally removing everything. You're just reducing the amount of treatment that you need to do later on. So the next step you then can come in would be to actually try to eliminate whatever plant pests that are actually within this excluded environment using things like sticky traps. Sticky traps, you can actually deploy them within the enclosure so that you don't actually accidentally trap the non-target pests that you are actually looking at. So sometimes you do get some of these beneficial, our garden friends in fact, coming and getting trapped on these sticky traps. And then you might want to use some of these organic pesticides such as white summer oil, pythrins, or even neem oil to then get rid of the remaining pests that's inside this enclosure. So a 3-pronged approach. First is to exclude, then is to reduce the number of plant pests that are actually there physically, and then you use other methods such as the pesticides, organic pesticides, or sticky traps and things like that.
Yes, okay, yeah, that is a very good approach, and then it really tackled that from different aspects. So the next question I have is from Siti Saad Naha Johari. There are small centipedes in the soil. What should I do? All right, so what you're referring as centipedes themselves, they only hunt on other insects and they don't really harm the plants. But I think you also might refer to millipedes, which also quite have similar appearance, because all of them are like long, so-called long worms with a lot of legs, and they like to crawl around. And then these, right, they are part of the healthy soil structures. And a lot of time when you put, you add a lot of organic fertilizers, you add your humus and all these leaf things, all these critters actually help you to break down the organic matters and improve the soil structure and health. So when you see these, do not remove them. They're actually helping your garden.
Right, okay. I have another question. Actually, which I didn't cover just now. So, one of our viewers, okay, sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. So it's from Luciani Chen. She mentioned how long can the solutions that just now I mentioned that I demonstrated last. So, like for example, the baking soda and also the chili, garlic, and onion solution that I demonstrated just now. So those can actually can last for a few days, about 2-3 days, and after that you might want to then change the solution again, because these are actually organic based, and because we are not using any agents inside to actually preserve the solution longer. So if you leave it for too long, what happens is the solutions might then turn bad. So then you might want to when you make a batch of some of these organic pesticides at home, you may just then want to spray generously on all your plants, and then when you're finished and you still want to use it for next subsequent few days, you can continue to prepare for the next batch. Right.
Okay, the next question I see here is from Lindy Word D. Will watering my plants with washed rice water cause pest? So I understand a lot of you like to use coffee, like the one that you already extracted, and then rice water. All these so-called can actually contain some organic matters that can help to fertilize the soil, and actually these don't really directly cause any pests in your plants.
Right.
And yeah.
Okay, so okay, I'll answer another. Okay, so we are running short of time. Okay, we'll take 2 more questions. Okay, I will take one question that actually is a 2-part question. So actually one for buy one get one free kind of question. Okay, so we have one of our viewers from I think her name should be Tan Pek Ha. She asked, my garden soil starts to grow patches of mold. How do I, 1, get rid of these, and number 2, prevent more occurrence? Okay, so sometimes you do get some of these mold that are actually growing on your garden soil, so they appear as like white patches and things like that. Very more obvious in like the black peaty kind of garden soils. So first, to actually get rid of them, unfortunately, the best way is still to use a physical method, actually to just scoop away that top layer where you actually get most of the mold that's growing. So this will actually greatly help to reduce the amount of mold that's actually present on in the soil. So you can just get rid of that. And if you're growing leafy vegetables, and this is what I would also recommend, you can actually use just now the recommended solution of using baking soda and water. So actually baking soda and water, so you might have also used this at home to actually clean away some moldy stains at home. So the baking solution that I recommended just now is actually also quite effective in actually treating some of these mold, and also to prevent them from actually occurring again. So what you need to do is can just use half a tablespoon of baking soda with 500 milliliters of water, and just put it in a spray bottle and just spray. But do take note, because what happens is this actually is more of a bit more of an alkaline solution. But don't worry, because our tropical soils, they tend to be more acidic in nature, so you don't really get too alkaline soils, because after some rains it will just readjust back to the normal pH already.
Okay, so this is the last question, although it's not directly related to pests, but I think it's good to mention. It's from Peppermint Tea. Baking soda harden after some time. How to unclog the nozzle? Yes, indeed, a lot of time when you use all these solutions, that homemade one, you dissolve salt, you dissolve baking soda, all these, eventually they will recrystallize. Yep. So it will clog your nozzle. So what you can actually do is probably maybe after like a week or so you use, you run through again with clear water. So you empty the bottle, you run through, you spray again, so let the clear water flush through to wash away all the salt, prevent the salt, all these salt from building up. So you can actually, you actually avoid unclogging, because once they're really clogged, right, it's very hard to get rid of.
Right. Okay, so that was our last question, right?
Yeah. Yes, okay. So, well, we have come to the end of the session today. Always a joy to answer your burning questions, and we hope to you enjoy our Gardening with Edibles live sessions.
Okay, so we do also have a slew of online resources ranging from videos to articles to guides, and these are all available on our NParks website on our under gardening resources. And if you have missed some of the things that we have mentioned just now, don't worry, you can actually also recap this particular Facebook Live session and also the past Facebook Live sessions, and as well the masterclasses to actually see and revise on some of these things that we have mentioned and covered before. But if we have not been able to answer all your questions this time around, we deeply apologize. We are so sorry because we also have a limited amount of time. But I'll try to do so in the upcoming NParks Buzz Instagram Live session that's happening on the NParks Instagram page on 16th of February at 8 p.m.
In the meantime, check out more of our gardening resources at various links on your screen.
Right, so do also take some time, so this is where we need your help over here, to share your feedback on this session, and also can let us know what you would like to see in the future sessions, and by scanning the QR code that's appearing on your screen right now, or to also click on the link in our comment section. So we hope to be able to get some of your valuable feedbacks so that we know how to improve our sessions later on, and also we know what topics to cover. So thank you everyone. We have come to the end of our session today. I hope you have learned something, and I hope we have been interesting enough showing you all these creepy crawlies and what are some things that we can do. So thanks for joining us, and goodbye.